At exactly 2:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. I was half asleep, but something felt off. It wasn't a message. It was a notification from my CCTV app. Motion detected. Living room. My eyes snapped open instantly. I live alone. Small apartment, 3rd floor. And the most important detail, I personally locked the front door before going to bed. Slowly, I picked up my phone, unlocked it, and opened the live camera feed. For the first few seconds, everything looked normal. The couch, the table, the TV, exactly where they should be. But then, something moved. In the corner of the frame, I zoomed in, and what I saw made my spine go cold. Someone was standing in my living room. Their back was facing the camera. Dark clothes, tall, thin, and completely still. Just standing there, like they were waiting for something. My breathing stopped. I sat up in bed, listening. Total silence. But the real horror was just beginning. I kept staring at the camera feed, and then I noticed something. The figure was slowly turning its head. No, not turning. Twisting, like its neck had no bones. 180 degrees until it was facing the camera. And then I saw its face. It was me. My face. My eyes. But that smile wasn't mine. My hands started shaking. I quickly looked around my room. The door was locked. The windows were shut. Everything was secure. So then, how did it get inside? I immediately opened the second camera, the one facing the hallway outside my bedroom. The feed loaded, and I froze. Someone was standing in the hallway, right outside my door, slowly getting closer. And then, knock, knock, knock. A sharp chill shot through my entire body. I dropped my phone, and then, from the other side of the door, I heard a voice. Open the door. The voice was mine. This happened in the winter of 2017, when I was 21 years old and attending a small college in Oklahoma. The campus was located pretty far away from any major city. Most of the surrounding area was just fields, woods, and long, empty highways. Finals had just ended, which meant winter break was starting. Most of my friends had already left earlier that day to drive back home. But there was one thing I absolutely hated more than anything else: traffic. So instead of leaving during the busy afternoon like everyone else, I decided I would start my drive late at night. My house was about 4 hours away from campus. At around 11 p.m, I packed my things into my old Ford Focus and started driving. At first, everything felt normal. The highway was almost completely empty. Every once in a while, a truck would pass by. Sometimes I would see distant headlights far down the road, but most of the time, it was just me, the road, and complete darkness. About an hour and a half into the drive, I glanced down at my dashboard and noticed something that made me slightly uneasy. My fuel gauge was almost empty. Now, this wasn't exactly unusual for me. I had a bad habit of driving my car until the tank was nearly empty before refilling it. My friends used to joke about it all the time. They would always say, "One day you're going to get stranded somewhere because of that." And I would always laugh it off and say, "Relax, this car still has at least 20 or 30 miles left even after the needle hits E." But that night, I might have been wrong. A few minutes later, the car suddenly jerked forward. Then it jerked again. Then the engine started making this weird sputtering sound. My stomach immediately dropped. I slowly pulled the car over to the side of the highway. The engine died completely. And just like that, I was stuck. I looked around outside the windshield. There was nothing but darkness. On both sides of the highway were thick woods stretching endlessly into the night. No houses, no gas stations, no lights anywhere. Just the quiet sound of wind moving through the trees. I grabbed my phone and checked the signal. No service, not even one bar.
I held the phone up higher and moved it around, hoping something would appear. Nothing. The screen just showed those two words that no one wants to see in that situation. No service. Now I was officially stranded. I turned on my hazard lights and decided I would just wait for another car to pass by so I could ask for help. Almost 20 minutes passed before I saw headlights in the distance. I quickly stepped out of my car and started waving my arms. But as the car got closer, it simply sped past me like I wasn't even there. That was the moment when it really hit me. I was completely alone out here. A while later, another car appeared. I waved again, but just like the first one, it didn't stop. By now, the night air was getting colder, so I climbed back inside my car. I leaned the seat back and decided maybe the best thing to do was just wait until sunrise. Surely someone would stop in the morning. I was just starting to drift off to sleep when suddenly I heard the sound of tires crunching on gravel behind me. My eyes snapped open. I looked into the rearview mirror. A black SUV had pulled up behind my car. The strange thing was, its headlights were off. I stared at the vehicle trying to see if anyone was inside, but the windows were too dark. A few seconds passed in complete silence. Then, the driver's door slowly opened. Someone stepped out. The man was tall, very tall, at least 6 feet or more. He started slowly walking toward my car. My heart immediately started beating faster. I quickly locked my doors. The man stopped beside my driver's window, and he was smiling. But it wasn't a normal smile. It looked like the kind of smile someone makes when they're watching a joke play out. He gently tapped on the window. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked calmly. I rolled the window down just a small crack. "Yeah, I ran out of gas," I said. The man stared at me for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's a rough situation." Then he leaned slightly closer and said, "Why don't you step out of the car and I'll help you?" His voice sounded calm, but something about the whole situation felt off. I asked him, "Do you have a gas can?" The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he just stared at me for a few seconds. Then he smiled again, slowly, and said, "No, but I do have something for you." He reached his hand inside his jacket, and in that moment, a wave of fear shot through my entire body. I didn't know what he was about to pull out, but my brain was already screaming one thing: this man did not stop to help me. The moment he reached inside his jacket, every instinct in my body started screaming that something was wrong. I didn't wait to see what he was pulling out. Instead, I slammed the gear into neutral, grabbed my keys, and threw open the passenger door. Then, I ran. I sprinted straight off the side of the highway and into the dark woods. Behind me, I heard the man shout, "Hey!" Then I heard his footsteps hitting the gravel as he started running too. The woods were thick and uneven. Branches scratched against my arms and face as I pushed deeper into the darkness. I didn't dare look back at first. I just ran as fast as I possibly could. After maybe 10 seconds, I finally glanced over my shoulder. The man was chasing me, and he was closer than I expected. My heart started pounding even harder. I zigzagged between trees, hoping it would slow him down. The ground was covered with leaves and loose dirt, making it easy to slip. At one point, my foot caught on a root and I nearly fell forward, but somehow I managed to keep running. Then, suddenly, the footsteps behind me stopped. I kept moving another 20 yards before diving behind a large fallen tree. I crouched down and tried to control my breathing. Everything around me was completely silent. Too silent. For a moment, I wondered if maybe he had given up. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. His voice. Not yelling, not panicking, just calmly speaking somewhere in the darkness. "Come on out," he said. His voice echoed faintly between the trees. "I just want to talk." I stayed completely still. I could hear him walking slowly through the woods now, leaves crunching beneath his boots as he searched. "Running into the woods wasn't a smart move," he said. There was something about his tone that felt incredibly disturbing, like he wasn't even angry, like he was enjoying this. I pressed my back against the fallen tree and covered my mouth with my hand to keep from breathing too loudly. The footsteps came closer and closer. Then suddenly, they stopped. I could hear him standing somewhere nearby, maybe 20 feet away. For several seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then he spoke again, this time much quieter, almost like he was talking to himself. "If you don't come out," his voice paused for a moment, "I'll find you anyway." My entire body froze. I could feel my heart beating so hard that it almost felt loud enough for him to hear. Then something even worse happened. A small flashlight beam suddenly appeared between the trees. He had turned on a light. The beam moved slowly across the forest floor as he searched, back and forth, back and forth. The light passed just a few feet from where I was hiding. I held my breath completely. If he took 2 more steps forward, he would see me. The flashlight beam paused for a moment. Then it slowly started moving toward the fallen tree where I was hiding. Every muscle in my body tensed. But then, suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the highway. A truck horn. The flashlight beam immediately jerked away from my direction. I heard the man curse under his breath. Then his footsteps quickly started moving away through the trees. Within seconds, the woods were quiet again. I stayed exactly where I was. I didn't move. Not for 5 minutes. Not for 10 minutes. In fact, I stayed there for nearly an entire hour. Finally, when I felt confident he was gone, I slowly stood up and carefully made my way back toward the highway. The moment I stepped out of the trees, I immediately noticed something. The black SUV was gone, but my car was still sitting there on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking in the darkness. I cautiously walked toward it. My stomach dropped when I got closer. The driver's door was open. I was absolutely certain I had locked it. My pulse started racing again. I slowly approached the car and looked inside. The glove box had been opened. Everything inside it was scattered across the passenger seat and the floor. My backpack had also been unzipped. Whoever went through the car clearly wasn't looking for gas. They were looking for something valuable. And then I noticed something else, something that made the situation even more terrifying. The man hadn't just searched my car, he had taken something. Because the jacket I had left on the back seat was gone, and inside that jacket pocket was my wallet, which meant he now had my ID, my address, my full name. Standing there on that empty highway, one horrible thought crossed my mind. What if that man wasn't just trying to rob me? What if he was planning something much worse? And now he knew exactly who I was.